Mickey Hart here, you're listening to the GAA Hour Football Show.
The GAA Hour with Colin Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
I'm not finished yet, it took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other and they regret what happened. They've had a frank discussion with each other, and they're both of them are keen to now focus on getting back their county jerseys.
That these fellas will get such a shell shock next Saturday evening that we'll put them back in their asses for 10 years.
Welcome to the GAA Hour. This is the football show on a Thursday. Myself, Conan and Conor are here. We're going to do a football show, lads. We're kind of in no man's land. We've 3 weeks to wait for the All-Ireland final. So we'll do a podcast on Thursday and next Thursday as well. So that the good news is Damien Comer's on the show. So
thank God for that.
Thank God for that. Yeah, before you all tune out, think you got an hour of me, Conan, and bloody Conor. So we'll be absolutely gone. So Damien Comer's coming on the show. So we're excited about that. Really big fans of Damien Comer. So there's loads to talk to him about. And especially because my prediction on Galway is heading into year 3 now, and my hands are hanging. So there's really big amount of pressure on me. So I need to talk to Damien about this.
It's a mid-term review with Damien. So
yeah.
Listen, we've got one more year.
Where are we, Damien? Where are we in our 3-year plan? My 3-year plan.
I thought we'd be closer at this stage, Damien. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. So I was reading a little bit about this yesterday, and Killian McDade looks like he's going to come back from Carlton. He's over there, and we identified the Galway half-back line last weekend as having no danger there, no speed, no one able to break through a line, no Jack McCaffrey. And that was a criticism I had of Kerry for a good while until they have White and Murphy in there now. You need some danger from back there because those late runs coming from deep. So another big plus for them next year is Liam Silk is going to be back from America. He's their go-to tagger, man marker. He's the fella that would have put on Kieran Kilkenny to quieten him down, like Mayo did with Lee Keegan. That's Liam Silk, that's his job. So then you have McDade on one side and Silk on the other, and get rid of Sweeney and get rid of Sean Kelly, and my 3-year plan, and Paul Conroy's back as well. So listen, lads, even my tone of voice is changing here, thinking about all these two dangerous wing backs then. Well, not two, one dangerous wing back with pace, the other a good man marker. Then you have Paul Conroy to come back in at centre half forward, and suddenly
Michael Daly, your man.
Michael Daly will be back fully right. Now I'm trying to my back's to the wall here, lads. Help me out.
You're getting me worried, Willie, as a Mayo man, thinking about Galway next year, because I looked at some of the ages of the Galway squad, thinking, actually, no, don't get ahead of yourself there, Willie, because they'll be losing a few people next year. But I don't think they will, because Sean Armstrong, I think, is only 32. And kind of was on the fringes of the team, wasn't always a starter. Gareth Bradshaw, 31. I'd say that they're the only ones they're in danger of losing. And I'm thinking of Mayo, we have about 5 or 6 players that are older than that again. Then Killian McDade to come back in. A few players. Michael Daly was kind of in and out with injury this year as well.
Well, the hamstring injury messed him up. Yeah. He's a guaranteed starter for me, Daly. So he's got that size. I did think there was a very obvious difference in physicality from Galway and Dublin, and while Galway put it up to them in the league final, I thought it looked a little bit men against boys at times physically. Yeah. Dublin are a huge bloody team. It's not even their height. They're just all Merchant aside, they're huge, physically imposing men.
Probably shows the scale of Kerry's challenge, doesn't it? Because Galway seemed like the men against Kerry.
Yeah, Kerry are a tiny team. This is always going to be a problem for the Kerry defence against Dublin. They're just not physically able to match up on them. And that's why Mayo can, because they can physically, like Boyle and Keegan and Vaughan and all these lads are big monster men as well.
It's not easy to say either that you can say, okay, they'll have a year of strength and conditioning, but the thing that Mayo had like 5 or 6 years of like strength and conditioning, prime strength and conditioning, and their players have reached a level, whereas I don't think Galway are really at that yet, and it might take them a couple of years to kind of get up to it. But that's it. Like you made the good point earlier on the week that's why kind of Mayo are always able to match up. Mayo felt confident in matching up Dublin one-on-one in the backs because their defenders could handle it physically. And I think it only really showed against Dublin at the weekend that Galway aren't quite there yet. Yeah,
they can match up to them. That's the thing. You mentioned the age of the Galway team, because there's a pretty depressing statistic about the Dublin average age for everybody else, not for Dublin whatsoever. So the average age of the starting team that beat Tyrone in last year's semi-final was 26.26. When you bring the calendar on, obviously a year to the starting 15 against Galway, and the average age was 26.2. So Mick Fitzsimons and Paddy Andrews went out of the starting 15, and Owen Merchant and Brian Howard came in. So everybody, the whole team got a year older, but their average age came down. Like, I mean, this is the brilliance of Jim Gavin, and he's constantly doing it. Like, I mean, you think Paul Flynn, no county would have dropped Paul Flynn for Niall Scully as soon. Now Paul Flynn has struggled for injury. Michael Darmacall is going now. McCarthy and then Merchant's in. You know, he's wriggling it around at these older lads. No county would be getting rid of these lads at the time that he's getting rid of them. I think it's cutthroat, but you can see what he's doing. This is never ending now, because these lads are getting a flavour of it. The new lads, like the likes of Merchant, Brian Howard, in that brilliant team. They're not looking out of place, although Merchant is a sitting duck in a full back line. But at the same time, this is brilliant management.
Yeah, and that goes against the argument as well that people say, you know, that argue against Dublin being too strong. They'll say, listen, it's cyclical. In a few years' time, this
isn't cyclical.
It's not cyclical, because you would have pointed out the core that you had a few years ago: Paul Flynn, Michael Darmacall, Bernard Brogan. They would have been, a few years ago, they would have been having an average age 26, 27. Now we're looking at Brian Fenton 25, Kieran Kilkenny 25. You know, James McCarthy's a little bit older. Conor Callan would make up for that by being a little bit younger.
Jack McCaffrey, Niall Scully, all them.
But like, when these lads are easing out, when these lads reach 30 or 31, 32, you can guarantee that there's going to be another core group of players that are 24, 25, 26 that are going to maintain the average age mid to late 20s, and it absolutely eradicates any complacency whatsoever. You're talking about, you know, no team would drop Paul Flynn, but like, you can guarantee that there's going to be no drop in standards, because they know if there is the single drop in standards, some young buck is coming in taking your place. And it's it's quite depressing to think about.
And even the thing, Conan, where they might say, oh well, Kildare are doing good underage, and Kildare could potentially challenge Dublin in 3 or 4 years, but Kildare under 21s might beat the Dublin under 21s, right? And that's fine. But Dublin only need 2 or 3 lads off that team. They only need 2 or 3 brilliant fellas. Like, Dublin don't need, like Laois will need a winning team that gets 7 or 8 off. Dublin only need the 3 special lads, or even 2, and refresh that senior team again with them next year. So like, I mean, is there any end to it? Unless Jim Gavin goes and we get a manager gets attached to the older lads and like, you know, ignores the young lads. Like, the rest of the country need Jim Gavin just to stand down.
The purpose of underage football is to bring through players. It's not really about success at that age, and good functioning senior teams at club level as well should only really be relying on 3-4 stars to come through out of every age group. You can't be relying on 8-9 of them to come through, especially not at once. The more depressing statistic is outside of that starting 15. You have Eric Lowndes 24, Cormac Costello 24, all below that average age as well, who probably could and will start next year again or whatever. Like,
they're in the mix.
They're like, Dublin only won that minor title in 2012. Before that it was 80 something. Now they're going for 4 in a row. Probably will get 5 in a row. So it's not really correlating with what you have to do at minor level or underage level.
No.
It's just about what you get.
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, it does get lost what a brilliant manager Jim Gavin is, and whether, like, I don't like a lot of things about Jim Gavin, I can see why he has the media, like, he's gone to extremes. He's an army man. Like, I mean, this is just his nature. This is his career, to have them like mechanical and efficient and not making mistakes. That's just the culture that man's worked in all his life. That's not it. Like, to say a team reflects its manager, look at their after match interviews. Like, they're told not to say to the point where I think it's gone so far extreme that it's gone way too far. But the idea that, like, Jim Gavin is just an outstanding manager, and I think Jason Sherlock has been a big plus going in there, and little things, they get their matchups always right, they get their tactics right since 2014. Do you remember Jim Gavin when he took over first and he banging on about, oh well, I play the attacking football that was handed down to me? That's all gone now. All that old rhetoric about nonsense about attacking flair. They're not an attacking flair team anymore. They're just a team that goes out and gets the job done on the day, and they don't seem to care.
Yeah, and brilliant at problem solving as well. I'm just thinking back to the final last year, and in the first half when Mayo were kind of all over their kickouts, Jason Sherlock runs on, has a quick word with Stephen Cluxton, all of a sudden they win all their kickouts in the second half. Now, I know that's kind of down to Mayo tiring, and they eventually
I bet he said try and find one of the Dublin lads, Stephen.
Yeah, I think so, but just going back to your point, it's just like that, you know, people will say, well, sure, look at the talent that Jim Gavin has at his disposal, anybody could manage it, but it's not that simple. I just hope for the rest of us, as you say, that, like, if he was to step down and then suddenly Dublin find that actually that wasn't that easy after all.
That's exactly, I think that's exactly it. And I think if Jim Gavin did step down and you get another manager in, and I think maybe ruling with an iron fist might be the management Dublin need, because of the spotlight that's on them, and because of the potential of getting carried away with yourself and not being tuned in, and all the success. Maybe you do need an army style drill sergeant to consistently keep you in line.
I always wonder, like, it doesn't strike me as a drill sergeant. Like, it doesn't.
They all are. Stop, will you? The man's in the army all his life. This man has been woken up at a certain time, and he hasn't lived his own free life all
he
his
doesn't strike me as
professional
somebody who is implementing it, but I'd say what he has done is.
I've seen enough movies to know what that army is like.
Like, what he's done is,
Gavin.
Yeah.
he's brought it about that culture where it is like, like in the army, the good thing about it is that, like, you reward people who sacrifice themselves for the team. In real life, you reward people who sacrifice everybody else to get ahead. They get the promotion sort of thing, but in the army, the leaders, they eat last at dinner, for example. Where, you know, so it is like that sort of spread around the Dublin team, and nobody is more important. Now, I don't know if it's drill sergeant or, like, remember those two quotes that were up in the changing rooms for 2 years in a row, and both of them were about the group dynamic and about being bigger than the one person. And
they're banging on about the team too much, I think. Like, I mean, it's too much. It's the constant theme of his interviews now, isn't it? That no one's bigger than the team, and Diarmuid Connolly's gone. I don't know. Like, I mean, the individual flair has to be celebrated too, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I mean, is this a reason I'm saying they're mechanical? But are we just thinking they're mechanical because constantly all we're hearing for them is the team, and you can't pick a player of the year from them? Like, it's actually to their detriment from winning player of the year. So this year now, who it is again? Fenton or Kilkenny? That's all. Like, just because, you know, they're consistently good, but are they standout players of the year? Maybe you can make an argument for Kilkenny, but he needs a bloody good final. But they're so team orientated now that there is no standout individuals above anybody else.
And this is probably the most frustrating.
But maybe
thing.
that's a good thing. Like, that's obviously a good thing.
Obviously it is, yeah, they've won 3 in a row. But, like, we sort of slag off or make fun about Kilkenny sometimes, and he's passing and, you know, just running backwards and popping it off. The reason you're so frustrated though is because it's Kieran Kilkenny, and you know he could take on 3 players and score every time he gets the ball. So you're losing that, but Dublin people will just say, "Oh, we're winning 3 All-Irelands in a row." It's hard to make a case against it. Like, I would like to see the flair. I thought though when they lost Diarmuid Connolly they'd be in trouble, but obviously not. Yeah,
they're definitely not. And obviously, just more to add into the hard luck Mayo story, that the year Connolly's not around, Mayo aren't. Like, how much more kicks do Mayo kind of need? Another one I wanted to mention to you lads, and I noticed this on last Saturday at the match, and we didn't have time on Monday to mention it, was the Galway warm-up. So this is always a bugbear of mine for a long time, and it's a great it's the first time I've seen a team doing this. So, you know, the 3-man weave that you do going in on goals, and every team does it. You do it in training. So you do your 3-man weave and 1 man shoots. So there's 2 gobshites just waiting on the end, and they're not going to get the shot. And always when we're training, even with Portlaoise now, I'm looking across and I've analysed who gets the ball first and who will be the one to end. So I'm saying to the lad in the middle, give it to him first on this one, because I know that I'll get the shot then, or else what am I wasting my time for? But what Galway do in the 3-man weave is they start at the 45. All 3 men in the 3-man weave have a ball. The 2 fellas on the outside, there's 2 fellas waiting then in on the 21. 2, 1 on either side and 1 beside them. So the 2 fellas on the outside kick it down to the lad on 21. They do their 3-man weave to the 21. The fella who has the ball takes the shot on goals. The other 2 fellas take a pop pass off the 2 lads waiting on the 21, and the lad waiting behind them on the 21 tackles the fella, and they both try to kick points. So everyone's included in this 3-man drill, and I was just looking at it going, now I have been out of the game for 6 years thinking, is this a new thing? Because it seems ingenious to me that now I don't have to analyse who gets the ball so I get the shot. Everybody gets a shot at goals, which is really what you want from any drill to end up. Any drill I don't care about once it ends up in a shot of goals. I'll do whatever you want. I'll crawl through dirt once I get a shot. Once I get a shot at the goals. Conan, you're nodded. You must have seen this one before.
Yeah, well, like, that sounds a lot tougher, but I would have done 3-man weave. The guy in the middle starts off. He ends up going for goal.
That's what we do, yeah.
2 guys get a pass just off somebody who's injured, and they pop it to them at either side, and you just put it over. There's no challenge. There's no kick pass to start off with, which is a good element to it as well. But yeah, so you end up everybody shooting anyway, so
everybody shoots. So it has evolved to everybody shooting, right? Okay.
Yeah,
so
I'm different to you. See, I'd miss a couple of goal chances and I'd go out wide then and say, give me the handy point.
Really?
I'll take that.
No, but at least it does. Okay, so that's it. So listen, there's nothing. I thought this was kind of completely cutting edge, but then again, I have been gone for 6 years and I'm only back. So you're actually, geez, that's disappointing.
That's all changed, wasn't
it? The game has changed. The warm-ups, everything. I'm just out of touch now. I really just have to get back. Right, so the other news of the week is Stephen Rochford is going to stay. Now, Stephen Rochford had to confirm this because this was getting silly. So the Independent were speculating that Jim McGuinness is going to take over the job. I don't know where they got that information. Unless they rang someone from the county board and said, now on the off chance that Stephen Rochford doesn't take it, would Jim McGuinness be part of your... well, we look at everyone.
Yeah.
Bing! There you go. So I don't know, maybe they got good information, but I wouldn't say Jim would be going back in any. But anyways, Rochford the next day had to come out. So it was actually funny, on the most read on the Independent, so Rochford is confirming that he's keeping the job, and Jim McGuinness potentially getting the job is still in the it's still in the most read. Isn't that brilliant? But so what's the feeling in Mayo about this, Conor?
I'd say it's very mixed, to be honest. Even I saw that the first place I saw it was in the Mayo News, so they had a kind of their front page this weekend is that Rochford confirms he's staying on, and all the comments kind of below when they tweeted out were kind of positive. And then I've seen a couple of polls from fan accounts saying, were they right to keep him on? It's very much, it's probably less than 50-50 on the fan polls, to be honest.
Less for him?
Less for him staying on, but really it's been close. It's been in and around 50-50. Like, it's been, like, since they've been gone out, like, there has been talk whether it's the end of the line, and then obviously the backroom team kind of moving on was the thing that, should Rochford go with them, or should he just take it as a chance to freshen up? Because I think everybody realised that it needed freshening up in some way or another. Like, that's not a comment on the quality of the backroom team. I think, like, Donny Buckley, Tony McEntee.
See, they're losing good lads though, right?
Yeah, Peter Burke's my own club. They're as good as what you'll come across. But, like, at the same time, those same group of players have been hearing the same voices for, okay, Rochford is now going into his fourth year. Tony McEntee would have been with him for 3 years. Donny Buckley for the best part of 6-7 years. Peter Burke for a long time as well. So the thing with Mayo that's different from Dublin, let's say, is that their squad is kind of constantly evolving, whereas Mayo has been the same group of players. So I don't know, it might be to their detriment getting a fresh voice in, but I think it might do no harm to hear something different anyway. So like, I suppose the thing on Rochford is, it's like, on one hand you're saying, well, listen, he's been there for 3 years, hasn't won anything, been beaten by Galway in Connacht 3 years in a row, has been on the verge of going out in the qualifiers, like with some very kind of dodgy performances. But then you look at it from another way, and it's like, well, who's got closest to Dublin over the last few years? It's definitely been Mayo. And like, when you look at kind of what Dublin are doing now, two teams that are their biggest challengers, Galway, Tyrone, that like, Rochford has to get credit for that. You could say that, like, kind of, well, listen, Noel Kennelly and Pat Holmes went close as well, but like, the players weren't looking to remove Stephen Rochford after a season. It was clear there was something wrong there.
But Rochford went close 3 times.
Exactly,
right?
and like, he's made, like, the thing as well is that he's made
was it 2 1-point losses and a draw?
Yeah,
like, that's
pretty
how,
much. Yeah,
that's how much he was challenging.
Some of the ballsiest calls probably in the history of recent history of GAA. And the thing is that, like, the Clark decision in the 16 replay is always going to haunt him for as long as he's in charge. So I think all that kind of factored into the equation. Like, a lot of people are like, listen, get rid. He hasn't won anything in Connacht in 3 years. He hasn't beaten Dublin. It's time for him to go. He's had his chance. Whereas others are like, well, listen, he got that close. He deserves one more chance. He signed a 2-year contract extension. I don't think people read into that. I'd say if he'll give it this year, and I'd say if it doesn't work out,
I agree, and I think he deserves that year that he wants with a new management team. Like, I mean, I think he does. I take the points on board. Who, like, do you know what's after popping into my head about while you're talking there? You know the mad owl lad that's in all the videos from Mayo that loses his head.
Yeah, Kelchma, man. Same
Is
time
he
as myself.
Kelchma? I'd love to know what he thinks about this.
I can find any amount of videos that'll tell you exactly what he thinks.
Can you? Yeah.
Jimmy Sloan is his name.
Jimmy wants Rochford out then, does he? Well, he thinks the O'Shea's, Alan Dillon are running the show, and Andy Moran are running the show in there, does he?
He'll also tell you that we need a new free taker as well, yeah. But I tell you, nobody will make the point in a more entertaining way than Jimmy Sloan. I haven't heard the most recent update. Like, some people were...
The one in the bookies was great.
Tomas O'Shea discovered him only last weekend, but the video that Tomas O'Shea discovered was actually him reacting to last year. But it could have been, it was that kind of, he didn't make any specific references, that he could have been making it this year.
At any time, yeah.
But,
no, that's what's refreshed him in my mind, is Tomas O'Shea has just discovered this fella. Like,
oh yeah, he's been famous for a long time. Yeah, I'm glad the rest of the GA world has seen the knowledge of Jimmy Sloan.
We should do a mashup of all his videos. They're really, really good. But, like, I mean, Jason Doherty has also been in the media this week, and he's been talking about how the rest is going to do them all the world of good. So they're going to have Stephen Rochford be back. They'll have a new backroom team, all fresh voices. They're all going to be fresh next year. So instead of chasing their tails on injuries and chasing their tails on, you know, losing an All-Ireland, going on a holiday, there'll be no holiday. They'll all be back playing with their clubs now and being able to relax. he said, Jason Doherty says, one thing I've noticed is that you're saying yes to things in WhatsApp groups that you haven't said yes to in about 8 or 9 years. Whether it's meeting up with friends or going to the hurling semi-final, catching up with friends from college, weddings and stuff like that. He said you're used to saying you have training or a match. It's been enjoyable getting back into those circles. So I think, he continues on and says it's definitely a great opportunity for us to re-energise, get new faces all over the panel, and if anything we can start 2019 with possibly less lads catching up with injuries and operations. So that's definitely a point that they have been chasing their tails. Now another way of looking at it is maybe it's good to just relax into a year and come and time yourselves like the Galway hurlers this year. You don't always have to be hitting the ground bang in January, because look at Galway, it's such a long year. Does that catch up with teams? I think it potentially might mentally, but at the same time they won't have the same kind of mileage the year before, and they can refocus. Where the fresh new faces are going to come out of is the next thing, because Stephen Rochford, he's clearly would love to bring in a few fresh faces. That's not rocket science, that's just common sense. He hasn't, because they're not there.
Pretty much so, yeah. And just what you said there with the different approaches, and let's say for the Galway hurlers, but Mayo don't know it any other way. Mayo don't know whether, they haven't had the luxury of being fresh into a season. It's always, they've had no option but so they've gone to an All-Ireland final, they've injuries that need clearing up during the league, they're chasing their tail somewhat. So it'll be novel if nothing else, because they've they have these few months off. We played Castlebar in the league game at the weekend. It's Paddy Durkin was playing, James Durkin, Barry Moore and Danny Kirby, Neil Douglas in August in a league game. This is just uncharted territory completely. So
should they try to win the league next year maybe?
I think they should have a better cut at it than they've had in previous. Mayo have practically admitted, Chris Barrett admitted before the league last year, other players have said it, that listen, between the jigs and the reels, between players trying to get back, between the arrangements between players living in Dublin and living in Mayo, that the aim has been survival, and God almighty, it's just been survival. Skin of their teeth stuff. Kevin McLaughlin takes 20 steps and kicks a point in the last minute in Donegal. So I think it'll be no harm them. It did no harm to Galway, it's done no harm to Dublin, and Mayo haven't had a proper cut in the league in years. So I think Rochford hasn't done it yet, so I think it's definitely worth a shot.
I think so too. I think they could do it. That'll be interesting to see them next year. I hope they're not gone away, because I think most people agree that they're hugely missed in the championship, only because there's an air of inevitability, even though we know Tyrone are kind of have that kind of arrogance and cockiness and tradition of winning finals and not being afraid and going in as underdogs against Kerry in 08, given no chance really. And that Tyrone team was nowhere near as good as Kerry's team on paper, not even close to it, because that 05 team had broken up and they were able to do it. So that's what's clinging, that's what's giving me, trying to give me hope, but everything else is telling me that they don't have any chance. The last bit is Kerry are looking for a new manager, so they've said that they want to have the manager ratified with his management committee on Monday night, October the 8th, at a county committee meeting. So the one thing I thought was interesting on this is that County Board Chairman Tim Murphy informed delegates at the County Board meeting that he was proposing that, apart from himself, a selection committee to pick the new manager would consist of County Secretary Peter Twiss, Development Officer Eamon Whelan, and Coaching Officer Terence Houlihan. I thought committees to pick managers now always had past players on them. I'd get worried when I see that now, and I don't know those three fellas' backgrounds brilliantly. But Jesus, throw Tomás O'Shea on it, or Mark O'Shea, or Dara, or Darrow Canada, or throw someone on it that might not be spoofed as easily by a manager, or the modern game has changed so much. It's easy for managers to come in. You could have a Stephen Poacher or some kind of chancer like that going down there trying to bamboo triple threat transitions, and these three fellas go, well, I do hear the word transition an awful lot, and he's coming with a triple. Should it not be an ex-player on that?
Yeah, I think there should be. I don't know the experience of the lads. I'm sure they've got a bit, but even just for somebody to bounce off, then just what do you think of that? So it's just there in the room, and you can just
exactly. So they'll make the decision, but they can bounce that off them now, unless they go away and give them. But you'd prefer the ex-player to be in that meeting, right? Yeah,
and especially the ex-player, if he's recent enough, it should be somebody ideally who's retiring this year.
I think Mark O'Shea, that's been in Eamon Fitzmaurice's extremely professional setup. So if a new manager's coming in with a presentation, he knows straight away if that's at the level that Eamon has left, and is it a good transition from Eamon to this fella, because he's worked under it. So like, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me that Mark O'Shea should be in that meeting, because like, I mean, what Jack O'Connor's favourite now. Jack O'Connor has been out of senior management since what, 2006 or 7. Like, the game has changed dramatically since then, but maybe Jack has changed with it. He's been with the minors under 21s. We don't know, but these 3 lads might not know. Mark O'Shea will know. You know whether Jack now, obviously the O'Sheas and Jack O'Connor have had some differences, which might, but you get my point.
Yeah, and like, just to change sport and podcast very quickly, but I was listening to Gary Neville on the Second Captain's podcast, and he was talking about going to Valencia, and Phil Neville was already there, and he told him about these problems that were in the changing room and these dynamics that were happening on the training pitch. But Gary Neville said his biggest regret was he didn't really sort of implement what Phil was advising him, but just having that inside knowledge then of like, here's what's happening, here's what might happen if you hire this guy, here, you know, here's how they'll react or whatever.
To
have that first hand experience of the problems or whatever.
Exactly. It's a mistake. I think it's a huge mistake, because this is such an important appointment. It's huge for Kerry. Like, I mean, this is the start of something potentially. They have to pick the right man.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with the kind of players coming through, that like with Sean O'Shea, David Clifford, and there's a lot of kind of young players that will kind of gravitate to the senior team in the next few years as well.
Now, Jack has had them, but like, I mean, I remember Gabriel Lawler came in to the seniors, but he was with us at minor, and it's a totally different ball game. Like, you just go out, a lot of time at minor, you just go out and play. You're good. You're a good team. Go out. Like, Gabriel would have told us, go out and play. But like that, go out and play. You know, Sean Dempsey was brilliant with the Laois minors in 06. He got the senior job, wasn't at the races. Well, I won't say he wasn't at the races, I wasn't in there, but he didn't bring them on. But he was brilliant with the minors, because again, go out and play. You're good players, express yourselves. That's not the message at senior level.
No, definitely not. I suppose the thing I'd be less concerned about it, like in Kerry in particular, in this instance, is that the candidates seem to be kind of there, or it's like certified already. So you're either Jack O'Connor, but I think Peter Keane is the minor manager, and there's a couple of players that were involved in maybe Ian Fitzmaurice's backroom team, Jeremy Murphy, maybe Maurice Fitzgerald. Whereas you could go into a county with that don't have candidates. Like I'm thinking, like, if Stephen Rochford wasn't taken over in Mayo, I can't think of candidates maybe outside of Jim McGuinness that are queuing up. And then if you don't have that ex-player representative in the committee, well, then they're, you know, kind of more likely to be spoofed, because there's not as many candidates kind of queuing up. Whereas I would say that if there's an ex-player on this, they're probably going to even end up choosing from the list of candidates that are there already. That kind of makes any sense. But
a lot of them now, even we saw the last Offaly manager, like Finbar Cullen and a good few ex-players kind of picked it didn't work out too well with Stephen Wallace. It was a disaster in the end, but you get my point. Most committees are using ex-players. I think that's the way to go. Right, listen, as we've gone way over time there, we'll come back and we're going to talk to Damien Comer. Alright lads, so we've discussed some of the rule changes that we briefly discussed them, some of them that could potentially come in and help Gaelic football be a better spectacle for supporters, because as we know, attendances are down, and not only, I don't need to know by attendances, I just need to know by what I'm seeing, and as a Gaelic football fan, I find myself bored, let's be honest about it, and that's the best indication for anyone. But I've been banging on about this for the last 3 years really, since like the defensive systems. I let them go for a year or two, and then I was kind of like, Jesus, this doesn't look like it's turning around. And eventually we're here now in 2018, and the evolution doesn't seem to be going back towards attacking teams. We could be at the evolution where the game looks a little bit like basketball, where all the 30 lads attack together and all of them defend together, and it still want man on both ends, but you're still got all the players in the same half. So it still just looks poxy, and I don't see it going away from that, because it makes more sense to defend with more numbers, and if the other team is defending with more numbers, it makes more sense to attack with all your numbers. So like, I think we're at a stalemate here, where the only thing now to help it, I don't blame intercounty managers for playing like that. It makes sense. Like, if you want to go play like Kerry and try to think you're going to beat Galway like that in a wet day, you're not going to kick good football against a team that gets a lot of players back. So we're at the point now, we're not seeing enough catching and kicking, we're not seeing forwards being rewarded, we're seeing all the power with defenders who can close and triple team a fella, and he has to hand up the ball to them and this kind of thing. So there's a few of them that we want to talk to today. So there's obviously the limit the hand pass, there's the offensive mark, then there is a rule to keep some defenders and attackers in one side of the field, and there's also one that's been doing the rounds lately, a shot clock. So we'll start with the easiest one, I think, lads, and that's where there isn't really a name on this. But this is where at the start of every game you name 4 defenders and 4 attackers. So you've got your taggers and you've got your attackers. These are forward specialists and these are defending specialists, and they stay in your own side of the field.
Is it the anti-transition rule? That's what you call it.
Now, under the obviously advantages of this is that we're keeping some traditional structure on the game. So when you look at a Gaelic football field, you're seeing men at both ends of the field all the time, right? So you're seeing 8 players cannot come back into their own half. Now this probably would be traditionally, and I don't think anybody can come out and say, oh well, that's just a traditional way, but we have to keep some traditional shape, or else it's not Gaelic football anymore. It's become something else. So this would probably be something like your traditional full back line, which traditionally were markers and attackers, and maybe your centre half forward, and they have to stay. So you can shape them any way you want inside your own half, right? Whatever way you want, in a line, in 3 inside with 1 out trying to feed them, and that's it. Your 2 wing forwards or whatever can come back and defend. Your midfielders, you can still defend with 10. I think it strikes a nice balance. We talk here all the time about if I was a manager, that would be my preferred system. But that's because I would want that. Managers are allowing them come back more than that. But so I don't know, what do you think of this, lads? Obviously the downside of this, people say all out attack, you'd be losing attacking cornerbacks out of the game, and they're good to see. Personally, I don't think that. They will reduce mass defences. They will promote kicking, because when you turn over the ball, you'll have people up ahead of the ball. We saw Tyrone against Monaghan leave more up, and the game was a lovely game to watch for 50 minutes until they kind of fell back. Wouldn't you love Tyrone to say, you're stuck with that for this whole game now, you have to play do you know what I mean? And from a referee point of view, because a lot of people will come back to refereeing this, it's not too hard. Do you know what I mean? Who are your taggers for today? Who are your defender taggers, or your substitute taggers? And one swaps in for the other, and they stay inside your own half. Conan, I'll hit you first. You're from Ulster, and you're predisposed to actually find fault with this.
So obviously you sent through these rule changes, and I thought, here we go, I'm going to pick some holes in these. But I'm all ears as well. I do think the burden of the proof sort of that this is going to work has to be on people who are implementing it. Has to be sort of, this will definitely work. So I have just a couple of other questions. So what happens, say you're not allowed in the half, but the ball is sort of coming towards you? Would that be a bit messy then, where you just have to wait for the ball to roll towards?
I don't think we'd reach a situation where a fella would be kind of waiting close to the line. You know what I mean? That can't step over. I reckon in this scenario, your furthest man forward would be on the 45. So you've got so much room. You've got so much room to play with. If you were on the borderline, I think there'd have to be a bit of leeway. Do you know what I mean? That you can run out a few. You can run out a few. You can't drift back past there. You can collect the ball just over
to the guy to just take the punishment. Oh, it's just there. I'm not going to just leave it. I'll just take the ball, and if it's a free against me, well then so be it. Do you know what I mean? Because I think I can never see a situation where this fella's just teetering over the line, just kind of,
and then just stopping. No, that would be silly. It wouldn't make sense. But I think if you're collecting a ball, a blind eye's turn to that. I think this rule is in force to not drift, to not be allowed come back there. You know what I mean? It's to stop the drift defences. It's not necessarily to punish you if you collect a good pass and you end up coming, you know what I mean, a few metres over it. I don't think that is. It's more a rule to keep the traditional shape on the game while your team is defending.
I do think though the other thing, it's just 4 is a lot of players, defenders. They say you're not, I know you can play up to the halfway line, but you're not allowed to play football as much anymore.
But you see, this is the way it is. Where's the game? Do we want cornerbacks that want to kick points and fullback lines? Because they're the ones that drag the shape all over the place. And you'd be losing Philly McMahon's. You could play Philly McMahon centre half back and have one of the wing backs. You know what I mean? Not name Philly as a tagger. Johnny Cooper doesn't attack anymore. Do you notice that's gone out of the Dublin? A lot of the Dublin defenders. Remember, Johnny Cooper used to just head on up. Johnny Cooper's a tagger now.
Yeah.
I don't think we're losing anything, because taggers. Remember, a lad that just, this is his life to keep you scored. There's a brilliant art in that as well.
Corey Camsley at the weekend was class to watch.
How many? We've lost that a little bit. How many lads do we need to see kicking points? We have 6 forwards, 2 midfielders, and 2 wing backs. Do we really need cornerbacks trying to come up? What you're losing is any traditional shape, and what you're gaining is just a cornerback kicking a point. Is it you know, I don't.
What
I don't,
about not having to name the specific taggers? So you just have to have 4 defenders and 4 attackers.
I think that's difficult.
I know, but
I think that's what causes confusion. If you don't have your taggers and your attackers named, then you're kind of like, well, he's gone, I can't go. I think it might cause a little bit confusion on the field, unless you did it where the 3 in the full back line never go, and then the 3 in the half back line obviously have to communicate a lot. I don't know. I don't think you lose anything by naming them. I really don't. Like, I mean, traditionally you'll always have 3 markers in the full back line, and your centre back will hold the centre back. Do you really lose anything traditionally by keeping that set in stone?
I'm just speaking as a wing back recently converted to a cornerback reluctantly, but now I can't go past the halfway line. That's what.
Yeah, what a nightmare. Yeah, but that's
and
it.
No chance to prove that you can go past the halfway.
Yeah, I think the attacking cornerbacks mess up forwards as well. And while it's a tactic that works, like, we don't want David Clifford back chasing a fella. Like, I mean, it messes. Like, we want David Clifford in position that when the ball comes up to him, we'll see David Clifford at his best. I do honestly.
That rule is brilliant for forwards. Like, you're not allowed to go past the halfway line. You know, you can't, even if you wanted to, you can't.
But that's it. That's the thing. Isn't a rule that's great for forwards? Isn't that great?
It should be what you're looking for.
It should be what you're looking for. Because at the moment you can just drop 15 lads in and a forward doesn't get a lick. Look at Tomas Corrigan says that the place to play now isn't corner forward. It's wing back. Is that not alarm bells ringing here? Ross Munnelly saying, well, you have to be very patient, and you know you're not going to get much ball, and you have to come out. You know, he's running out to the 45, getting the ball just to have it in his hands, and then passing it off backwards. That's a corner forward role. Let's change that, lads. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, so that's one that can definitely work. Limit the hand pass. So this is one that can. I think this is one that could potentially cause more problems from a refereeing point of view. Obviously, the advantages of limiting the hand pass to maybe 5 consecutive hand passes. I was counting that brilliant Corofin goal in the All-Ireland Club final with 7 in that. Yeah. Now, that's a drawback on that. You don't want to lose that brilliant, incisive goal and a palmed in goal. That's a huge skill. Unless you limit, I don't know, backwards hand passes. So anyways, so this would promote kicking, obviously, because you have to kick. And teams would obviously have to leave more players ahead of the ball. So instead of you have to keep 4 up there, they nearly would have to keep 4 up there themselves, because they'd have no one to kick it to, unless you want to turn around and kick a risky kind of 10-yard kick pass like they do in the women's football. Sometimes instead of a hand pass, they might just kick it to somebody like 3 or 4 metres away. But they're evolving as well. Like, I mean, I think it's the weakest one, limiting the hand pass, but I think I would be more than happy knowing that's the weakest one, even just seeing how it works.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the worst of the 3 that you're doing, because I think the hand pass, the Corofin example is one. Tyrone scored, I think it was like 13 seconds from Colin Kavanagh, won the ball. I think it was 6 hand passes the whole way up the pitch. Lovely score. I think the hand pass isn't the problem, it's just a sort of symptom of the problem, which is mass defences. And I think if you limited the hand pass, you're sort of taking away, like Dublin are hand passing a lot to try and get around these mass defences, so you're taking that advantage.
That's why and if you're leaving 4 taggers and 4 forwards up, you're not as encouraged to hand pass around. You're more encouraged to kick up to them then, because there's lads up there. So that the 4 taggers and 4 forwards could actually solve the hand passing thing, because you don't have as many back. The kick pass is on. You throw an offensive mark, for example, in with the 4 taggers. Like, you've got a great game there. Like, I mean, and this is not limiting any hand pass, but almost encouraging them to kick.
I think it has to tie into another rule as well. If you're going to limit the hand pass, the only problem is that, like, we played these games in training. You're going to see crap kick passes that you would have just normally done as a hand pass. You know, you'll see people kicking.
You see that?
This is what happens in training anytime we do that anyway. And the other thing is, if you didn't limit backhand passes, for example, what I'd worry about is that people would start to kick the ball back 40 yards and then just start it again if it didn't tie in with the rule that you can't go back into your own half.
Now that is a doomsday scenario. Do you know what I mean? That's the worst. That is the worst case scenario in this.
I love that rule. They come in and then you watching this happen, kicking back to clutch them.
We are always looking. That's the worst thing about GAA people, is that when a potential rule comes in, it's like, why won't it work? As opposed to why will it work?
What is the worst possible thing? It's called the Conan Doherty syndrome.
You have to do that. You have to tell me if there is
CDS. So the other thing was, like, I mean, Pat McEnany obviously told me that he just counts them out loud and he says it works easy. Then I was thinking in Croke Park, like with an atmosphere, like I remember playing wing forward in Croke Park and a cheer goes up. The centre forward is shouting at you and you can't hear him.
Imagine it being over the tannoy.
So
public address system is like 1, 2.
Unless the ref would be mic'd up in some way that would keep it going, maybe that would probably solve it. I do think limit the hand pass, while I think obviously the intentions are right. I think it's maybe one of the weaker ones. We're agreed on that.
Imagine you're a defence, a packed defence as well, and you're just like, well, they have to kick it here, so let's just sit back and wait for them to kick it.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough, and I've thought about that. But then you're screwed with that the other side. So both teams can't play that game, or else there's no game.
For
do you know?
I don't care about that.
Do you get me though? Like you're literally at nothing if you say. I thought the same thing. Sure, then you're on your kick pass and there's 15 lads. Sure, then what do you do with it? Then you know what I mean. The other team will do the exact same thing to you, and then it's just a farcical situation. That's what they'll do in Ulster. That's exactly how the games would work in Ulster. Right, offensive mark, lads. I love this, but I don't think offensive mark will necessarily fix the game from the way it is. I think offensive mark is such an easy little rule. Basically, it's the very same principle as the mark in midfield. So you catch the ball, you can't be tackled, and you've 5 seconds to kick it. So this is not going to slow the game down. It's not going to be like, oh, there's a free taker trotting over now, and this is like a big deal. This is you getting rewarded for catching a ball in there, and you get your shot at the goal. So you could catch that at a tight angle. You just have to get the shot off. So we see more shots at goal. We see more kicks in. We see forwards being actually rewarded for catching a ball under pressure. The crowd will cheer when they see a ball being kicked outside it. Like, I mean, the anticipation of, is this actually going to be fetched? So we see more fetching, catching, kicking. It's beautiful. I don't think it will fix the game totally, but I think married to the 4 taggers and 4 forwards, lads, honestly, I think that maybe you could give the forward more than 5 seconds. I know 5 seconds is maybe very little to have a shot at goal, to compose themselves. Maybe you could go to 10 seconds before they have to do it. See, again, this is the thing. I don't even think this is going to change the game. Like, the people have these again doomsday scenarios. Oh well, then the team's just going to pick 3 giants in there. Well, they're not, because 3 giants wouldn't be able to kick scores. Like, are the 3 of them just going to stand on the edge of the square? They'd have to spread out. So the 2 giants either side, are the 2 giants going to be able to follow their men to halfway? The cornerback obviously can't go over halfway. but are they going to be able to kind of turn you over? Like, I mean, 3 giants. Giants don't fit in modern fluid Gaelic football. Like, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the way. Teams would probably play a target man at number 14 just for that option. Yeah,
well, like, the best target man at the minute is like Daniel Flynn. Like, he's a class footballer. Like, you know, Damien Comer, Kieran Hughes when he came over from Monaghan, it was thrilling. Like, just kicking into him because he's winning everything.
Yeah, well, now they're getting ball out in front. They would only be rewarded for catching the ball over their head.
Well, the only thing I would do, like, I don't mind that rule. I think it could work. The only thing I would do is just create a zone, like, because otherwise I don't want the kick, a 24-metre kick from the 45 down into the corner.
See, but what are you benefiting from that for? Well, there's no benefit there.
You could probably play on then.
You play on.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true,
you play on. Like, unless you're saying, right, well, Bernard Brogan kick from the corner flag, let's you stay out there. But like, what are the percentage chance of scoring from out there? So, like, you did think about that. Well, there'll be boring kicks down the corners, but sure, you don't have a man off the shoulder. You can't score from out there, so there's no benefit of you know what I mean? You'll still have your full forward line making the same runs. It's just when they get that nice diagonal ball, if it's a good ball, then they have the potential to mark it, or the potential to lay that off and play on. That's the beauty of this. It's like the mark in midfield. The game doesn't have to change unless you want to take the mark.
Yeah. No, I think that the best rule changes should be rule changes that are incentivised. So the rule change that came in the last couple of years with the mark, that rewards long kickouts if executed correctly. I think a long kicks in if there's somebody that can claim the ball in front of a goal, that's an incentive to kick the ball in. My only worry was that then the ultra negative coaches will then try and pack the area in front of where the ball is going to be kicked because they know that the incentive is there. And but again, that's me playing devil's advocate and thinking of the worst possible scenario. And
like, see, that's the thing. But like, I mean, would it be more beneficial because a good diagonal ball will be caught? I was thinking the team might have to push out on who's kicking it to not allow that, because like, I mean, say if you've got 2 men marking Comer, like we've often seen Michael Murphy catch a ball with 2 Tyrone lads tagging him, but then he ends up losing it. If it's a good diagonal ball, you catch it even with 2 fellas, or like 2-on-1. But like, even if you've more men in the zones, these men in the zones are a waste of time because they're not stopping that mark and they're not putting pressure on the kicks outside, so they have to move out and actually tag man for man around the field. or else
whereas they're effective at the moment because once the man claims the ball inside, then they can start crowding about.
Well,
and
the 2-on-1, even the zonal lads can turn around and go 3-on-1 in that scenario. So I don't know. I can't see any. The only thing I could see maybe in the offensive mark is players acting the maggot with the 10 seconds. They could catch the ball, pretend they hurt themselves. If
they're ahead,
if they're ahead, maybe something like that. If that's an issue, well, maybe if that's an issue, if you go down injured, well, somebody else has to take it within. You know what I mean? That somebody else has to move in.
Conor McManus, come over here and take this.
Just make sure Conor is close to the tagger. But there's things that need to be ironed out. But then again, that's the doomsday. That's the worst case scenario. That will happen in Ulster. I'm obviously joking about Ulster, but it's easier joke more when Stevie's not here, and we don't have the 2-on-1 situation. The other one, lads, is the shot clock, and I've thought about the shot clock, and what I think of the shot clock, and I can see the principle of it. I think that the shot clock, all that does is benefit the team that's dropping men behind the ball, because the attacking team gets desperate and has to kick it away. Do you know what I mean? People are saying the shot clock would stop Dublin playing around with it, but Dublin are only playing around with it because look what they're facing and they're ahead. So do you want to punish Dublin by having to attack this counter-attacking team and getting desperate and giving the turnovers that they want? I can't see how the shot clock in any way stops defensive systems. If anything, it encourages you to sit back because the other team have to play it at some point. And when they do, we'll get a block in and we're away into your area. What's the advantage of it? I see it rear its head a lot recently, Conor, since Dublin started playing keep ball. But Dublin playing keep ball Dublin are not the boogeyman for playing keep ball. I know. It's why Dublin did that. It's because of what's waiting off the other end, and they're ahead.
You put me off it there. My kind of, I would have proposed it. Let's say I would have been in favour of it because it's potentially stops all the backing over. Like if the shot clock starts as soon as you go into a half and you have maybe 30 to 60 seconds to get a shot off, well then you can't go back and over.
And it would fix that, obviously.
And even though there's an element of desperation, I think that's even part of the appeal. The 55 seconds you have to kick it when somebody launches the ball, it's an awful shot, but people are excited again, another attack is starting.
But it won't fix defensive systems.
I hadn't thought about that. My only concern with the shot clock was that all rules that come in, and I make an exception for Hawkeye because Hawkeye relates to just shots, on goal, and I'm fine with the fact that you can only do that in Croke Park and Thurles, for example. But all rules that should come in should easily slip down to the club game. And I can't envisage a situation where referees at club games are implementing shot clocks.
And
I agree.
In basketball, the shot has to hit the rim for it to count as a shot. So how do we sort of define what's a shot or not? If it drops 20 meters short, does that still count as a shot?
Right.
If a ball hits the backboard in basketball and doesn't hit the rim, it doesn't count as your shot.
Well, what difference does it make because you've thrown it away anyway? Or maybe if you win the rebound, you might win it back, right?
So if it hits the backboard and you win it back, it doesn't. Your time's up.
Okay, I suppose that makes sense because you could use it as a tactic then, couldn't you, to get it back off the off the backboard? But no, lads, I don't see the shot clock, and I think everybody's got the shot clock all wrong, and they're trying to punish Dublin. When Dublin are not the team that needs to be punished. Do you know what I mean?
That's why I don't like the.
Now, not saying that what Dublin did wasn't ugly, like it was. It doesn't look like Gaelic football, but I can see why Dublin did it, and I don't think they should be punished because they're not the ones initiating this kind of game.
Yeah, that's just why I don't like the hand pass either. It's that's just there to get around what they're seeing in front of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. The hand pass, I think. So we'll say limit the hand pass. So what we'll agree on. Offensive mark, and what name will we put on the 4 taggers for attackers?
I haven't fully agreed on that.
Have you not? But that has to work with something.
It's very extreme. Let's go 3 to start off with.
But you see, but here's the point. I thought about 3, right? Galway left 3 up in the whole game against Dublin.
Yeah. Teams are doing it anyway.
Leaving 3 up doesn't make the game any more beautiful. Do you know what I mean? You nearly need the extra 4, and then it's less men. Now, I don't know. I don't think 3 is enough. I think for that extra 1, I do get your point on half back lines. Traditionally, all can attack when they want, and one won't be able. But I don't see 3 changing. I know it's only 2 more players, but it's still 2 more players. I don't know. Maybe
just his natural conservatism coming out. He doesn't.
I take 3, but you look at it. Monaghan and Tyrone always, most of the time, they'll drift back. Are trying to play 2 up front on either end. And the games are still very, very defensive. Do you know what I mean?
Wouldn't be a huge thing for them to add one more.
I don't think one more, but four extra players would make a big difference to those ones. But with 2, I don't know. I think you need to go 4. I would be in support of 5. I'm trying to meet people halfway on the 4, not go down to 3. I'd go 5. I'd actually go 5 altogether and completely get this traditional shape back onto the game. Yeah, but listen, that's
never
it.
get past Congress.
Not a there.
Boys, I actually think, do you know how hard it is to get things past Congress? I think there's so much grumbling at grassroots level about the game, and the attendances are down as well. Going to matches, TV figures, viewing figures are well down on last year. I think these will fly through Congress. I think people want to make the game. I think if you sell to Congress, the conservative traditionalists in Congress, to say will there be more catching and kicking, lads will drive it in, isn't that what you all want? Would you let it in? I think these things could fly through Congress. I really do.
That's how you'd have to sell it. Just don't say radical change. If you say radical change,
don't say radical changes. Say we want to see more traditional. This is to save traditional skills of the game. Who would actually say no? I'd rather not save those traditional skills.
But Congress people are like me as a 75-year-old, where they just love the GAA so much, but they don't really see many problems either. Like last year they had that snipe at the CPA, and they were calling themselves the GAA, the real club players association.
But that's stuff that they're responsible for. That's fixtures. That's their responsibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They'll always get defensive about that. Well, there's nothing wrong. What are you talking? Like, they're gone. But this is saying to them, and they're having their pint in the pub, "Jeez, the game's gone to shite." You know, like this is them actually having an opportunity of making the game less shite in their view, because this is all older people's view. It's just like, I'm a traditionalist. I love catching and kicking. I think they're the skills of the game, so I think they should be protected, and the mark protects it. I'd like to see forwards protected, but I think these will fly through. I really do. I even think the conservative lads, you'll just play on their traditional values, and I think that they'll fly through. But anyways, listen, we've gone over time. That's great. We will talk to you next Thursday, and we'll have a special guest in the studio then.